Good evening, and thank you for joining the October 3rd, 2023 City Council regular video meeting, hybrid meeting. City Council is in executive session until approximately 7 p.m. City Council will reconvene in open session at 7:15 p.m. Thank you for joining us tonight and for your patience.
Can I get a sound check? Test, test, test.
Yes, I can hear you, Mr. Mayor.
Does it need to go any louder?
No, you're good. Thank you.
I'm going to do the totality of tonight's meeting standing up.
Do we all have to do that?
Oh no, they got this standing desk in here and it's.
Mr. Mayor, I believe with everyone on their screens, Alfredo will take down the executive session note and we are live.
Very good. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the October 3, 2023 City Council regular hybrid meeting. I'm Mayor Salim Neese. This evening's hybrid City Council meeting is being brought to you by Zoom. We're also broadcasting on the city's YouTube channel. Due to equipment failures, we're unable to broadcast on MITV channel 21 and welcome anyone wishing to watch the meeting live to join us on the city's YouTube channel or via Zoom. Before this meeting, the City Council was in executive session from 5 to 7 p.m. During executive session, we discussed with legal counsel to consider the selection of a site or the acquisition of real estate by lease or purchase when public knowledge regarding such consideration would cause a likelihood of increased price pursuant to RCW 42.30.110, paren 1, close paren little b, close paren, and to discuss with legal counsel pending or potential litigation pursuant to RCW 42.30.110, paren 1, close paren little I, close paren. City Council was in recess from 7 to 7:15 p.m. We welcome you all and thank you for joining us this evening. Council members, please have your microphones turned on for the roll call. City Clerk Andrea Larson, please call the call. Please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Andral.
Here.
Councilmember Jacobson.
Here.
Councilmember Reynolds.
Here.
Councilmember Weicker.
Here.
Councilmember Weinberg.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
Here.
And Mayor Neese.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We have a quorum present. Next, we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Council, please mute and turn off your video to ensure that the U.S. flag is visible. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We now move to approval of tonight's agenda. If there's no questions, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Weinberg, seconded by Councilmember Weicker. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Andral.
Aye.
Mayor Neese.
Aye.
Councilmember Weinberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Reynolds.
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobson.
Aye.
Councilmember Weicker.
Aye.
And Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Motion passes. The agenda is approved. And next up, we have the city manager's report, for which we welcome City Manager Jesse Bond.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My executive assistant, Casey Thompson, is going to assist me with screen sharing. Thank you, Casey. All right, hard to believe it is already October. Happy October 3rd. Let's go to the next slide, please. Council, this will be a likely multi-repeat for you, but you'll start to notice in the city's communications that we're going to continue to emphasize the best way to access city services, especially considering that City Hall is closed, is via our very talented and capable customer service team. This was actually a model born out of the COVID pandemic. We have centralized all of our customer service functions. So anyone that needs anything from the city, the best place to start is the customer service team with the phone number and the email address there. They have a pretty incredible performance rate. They're typically able to handle 70% of the calls and emails that come in without passing you along to another staff person. But in the event you do need assistance from another team member, they will make sure to get you connected to the right person. All right, next slide, please. This is just a look ahead at our upcoming meetings. Your next meeting, hybrid council meeting, will be Tuesday, October 17th. We continue to meet on Zoom, although the community center has a room available should anyone desire to provide comment in person or just to come and watch the meeting. Also on deck this week, both the Design Commission and the Parks and Recreation Commission are meeting, and then the Utility Board will hold a meeting next week. As a reminder, all of our board and commission meetings and our city council meetings are updated on our website at the link at the bottom of the slide. City updates. This is mostly in the flavor of some maintenance updates and some capital projects updates, but let me start with the City Hall closure. Which is actually on tonight's agenda later this evening. So I'll have a more comprehensive update. In the meantime, for the community and the council, I wanted to make you aware that our staff teams are continuing to work on all that goes into preparing City Hall for permanent closure, presuming that is the direction that we receive from the council tonight. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, including planning for people to retrieve their belongings from the building, keeping in mind that we have not been in the building since April. We're considering the equipment and assets that need to be saved and stored. We're addressing retention of our paper records, which are housed in various locations of the building. And certainly we have some things that possibly need to be disposed of as well. So all of that is happening behind the scenes. We are continuing to work on a new the Slater Room here at the Community Center, where I am presenting from tonight, will be the future home of our council chambers. Things like paint, new flooring, lots of technology improvements to allow us to host hybrid meetings in that space, and security enhancements as well. That work is underway and it's on schedule. We hope that November 7th will be your first council meeting in that space. We are also working on stabilizing our police department through the use of temporary modular buildings. We have one modular building on site at the City Hall campus, with another expected to arrive in the next 6 to 8 weeks. I'll save the rest of my update for later this evening. Next slide, please. Wanted to give a shout out. I have several maintenance updates for you. The first is just to showcase and thank our staff teams for the collaboration. Our police marine patrol hosted our sewer teams out on the lake. You might be wondering, well, council, I think you know this, but our community might be wondering why. It's because we have a considerable amount of sewer infrastructure in the lake and immediately adjacent to the waterfront. So getting out on the water and touring our facilities and assessing our facilities is one of the ways that we maintain and oversee and manage our sewer network. So our thanks to the Marine Patrol for getting the sewer team out on the water. And certainly efforts like this assist us with all of the responsibilities we have related to this important sewer infrastructure. Next slide. It's storm season. Storm teams and our maintenance teams have been busy at work. Mother Nature has certainly decided that summer ended. We've had a lot of rain. It's also that time where we start to deal with windfall. So our stormwater staff have been out working on catch basin maintenance, particularly prioritizing those stormwater basins that have installed sediment collection socks. So we get those socks replaced as the weather begins to turn. You may have also noticed we started pushing out our communications to our community to ask for a little help in keeping the storm drains clear, particularly as we're in the season of leaf fall and other windfall debris. Thanks to our stormwater team for the great work they're doing. Parks maintenance, I just wanted to highlight this. If you want to get out on a walk, stop by the Ellis Pond Boardwalk. This is one of those, I think we do this annually, but one of those annual work items where we go out, we pressure wash, and we restain the Ellis Pond Boardwalk. So that would be a great place to go and visit. It's important to get it cleaned off this time of year with, again, the rainy season starting. Thank you to the Parks maintenance team. Tree maintenance. Council, I've emailed you about this, but I wanted to remind you as well and let the community know that we have quite a bit of tree work coming up. It looks like right now our tree contractor will be on site the week of October 2nd and again the week of October 24th. We'll be removing dead trees and other dying and diseased trees, essentially the trees that pose unacceptable risk to public safety. This work will be happening around the island on city-owned properties. This is just a reminder that this is the last resort. This is when a tree can no longer be saved, but we take actions throughout the year through corrective pruning, watering, and other measures to save trees when we can. But when they cannot be saved or they have become unsafe, they do need to be removed. We have a really good track record of replanting trees. Last year, the city replanted 10 trees for every tree that was removed. I think we're on track to meet that goal again. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me this evening, but I'll make sure that we do a report out as we typically do on our tree replacements. Next slide. Moving on to some capital project updates, including a sustainability win. We were able to save about 50 cubic yards of asphalt grindings from the Madrona Crest residential paving project. We stockpiled this material. These grindings are 100% recyclable and are typically used to make new hot mix asphalt. So by saving these grindings and stockpiling them, we will be using them in an upcoming project. It's the Pump Station 10 Access Road project, which will save us almost $5,000 by not having to purchase and haul new gravel. So this, I really appreciate the staff teams thinking ahead on this. This is a collaboration between our maintenance team and our sustainability teams. Next slide. The Island Crestway Corridor Improvement Project. Council, this is a heads up. We will definitely have more information coming your way. You may recall that we completed the Island Crestway Corridor Safety Analysis. I think that was last year. And some of the next steps are starting to move forward. So this includes design and construction of 3 enhanced pedestrian crossings. We will also be looking at intersection improvement feasibility study at 2 locations, Southeast 53rd Place and Southeast 68th Street. And also on this scope of work is starting to look at development of shared use path design alternatives. This is this is really several projects all rolled into one slide here, but I wanted to make sure you're aware that work is moving forward. We will be publishing a Let's Talk page. All of this information will be rolled up on the page. And we will also be using that page and the city's communications platforms to notify the community about public engagement opportunities and to seek input as several of these projects move forward. Council, for you, we will probably be in front of you, we think Q1 2024 on the shared use path design alternatives. So that is on deck to come in front of you really soon. Next slide. Also, another major project is starting, and we're going to be sharing a lot of pictures of this work and updates. Sewer Basin 40 is located in and around the Mercerwood neighborhood. You can see that picture there on the screen. It's one of the oldest portions of Mercer Island's sewer collection system. Given the age of this part of our system and concerns with things like groundwater seepage, also known as infiltration, and stormwater runoff, also known as inflow. These are both problematic and prevalent in this area. So this project will significantly reduce both of those problems by installing more than 12,000 feet of cured in-place pipe into the existing 8-inch, 10-inch, and 12-inch diameter sewer mains. So again, 12,000 feet of cured in-place pipe, pretty impressive. Use of this pipe involves inserting a flexible liner. We had a picture of it on the previous slide into the failing sewer pipe. That liner is then pressurized, and then it's exposed to ultraviolet light to cure and harden the liner. It's kind of like going to the dentist, right? Not really. This is a really efficient way of treating the sewer infrastructure. And the other thing we like about it, at the risk of stating the obvious, is that we can use our existing sewer manholes for access. So unlike other alternatives where we're replacing the whole line, we have very minimal disruption to residents, properties, and our roads. This project is going to take 6 to 8 months to complete, and we'll be keeping you updated as the work progresses. Next slide. Let me conclude the capital project updates with some good news. We are excited to share with you that the American Ramp Company is in town on site, and we have equipment and supplies being delivered to the Bike Skills area construction. If it didn't start today, it will be starting likely by tomorrow. This is to commence construction of the new Bike Skills area at Dean's Children's Park. There will be some impacts to parking and some of the adjacent park areas. We have a map on Let's Talk, and we'll keep everyone informed of that. We have a Let's Talk page, which you can access through the web link there. We'll be posting pictures and progress reports, hopefully every week as construction continues. The timeline to finish this project is about 6 to 8 weeks, so we're all very excited that it's starting this week. Next slide. Just a couple of quick reminders. First of all, tomorrow is a presentation on fentanyl awareness. It's here at the community center. It's called One Pill Can Kill. It is from 7 to 8 p.m. Pre-registration is not required. We'll be in the big room, so we have lots of space. We hope we'll have a big turnout for this. Attendees will learn how to protect yourself, your family, and others, as well as receive more information about the danger of fentanyl and other drugs. We are coordinating with the DEA on this presentation. Our Youth and Family Services staff will be there, and our police department will also be in attendance. Next slide. Also, Council, looking out a couple of weeks, I just want to keep this event on your radar as well. It's an Arbor Day event, and we will also be officially commemorating the opening of the recently finished Luther Burbank South Shoreline Trail. Although the trail is in, we have quite a bit of planting work still to do, and we will kick it off on October 21st with a volunteer event working in and around the trail. The mayor will be there at 9:45, and it sounds like we will be dedicating a special tree. So, Council, we hope you can join us at 9:45 for the photo op and a few words before we kick off our Arbor Day volunteer event. All right, rounding out, I've got just a couple of slides on the theme of some good news. We wanted to share this with you again, Council. I think you've already seen some of our communications on this, but we have a new battery recycling box at the thrift shop, thanks to a suggestion made by one of our community members, Bowen Nago, who is a 5th grade student at West Mercer Elementary. He wrote into us actually at the end of the last school year, and with the hiring of our new sustainability analyst, this was one of the first things she jumped on. Hey, we've had a really great success. In our first week, we filled that box with 50 pounds of batteries. So we have to get a new box. We probably need 2 boxes given the rate we're going. So we thank Bowen for his thoughtful outreach. Thanks to the staff team and the thrift shop for hosting us. And we continue to encourage Islanders to recycle the batteries. And while you're at it, stop by and donate or shop at the thrift shop. We have an update on our hawk, which I wanted to share because, of course, there's a little football spin here. You might recall that in early September, our utility team rescued an injured hawk on the site of East Mercer Way. That's the hawk in that photo there with one of our staff members. That hawk was taken to Paws Animal Rescue in Linwood, where the Raptor Rehabilitation Team took him in. We just got an update today about the hawk that he is transitioning into his pre-release enclosure, which means his recovery has gone really well and he will be back out in nature very soon. So I wanted to say thank you again to the staff team and to Pause for the work on this hawk. And of course, that's my opportunity to say, go Hawks. And that concludes my presentation this evening. Thank you.
Mayor Neese, you're muted.
All right. Our next item of business is appearances, which is an opportunity for anybody to speak to the council on any issue. City Clerk, has anyone signed up for appearances this evening?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Tonight's agenda will include in-person public appearances and remote public appearances via Zoom. Individuals wishing to address the council may do so in person or by Zoom or telephone, provided they register with the City Clerk by 4 p.m. today. When it's your turn to speak, you'll be called by name. Remarks must be addressed to the council as a whole and not to individual council or staff members. As it's election season, please be reminded that state law, specifically RCW 42.17a.555, prohibits the use of city facilities for campaign-related purposes with limited exceptions. Accordingly, please do not make campaign-related comments during this time. Please speak audibly and state your name and city of residence for the record. There'll be a timer on the screen. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. When your time is ended, I'll thank you for your comments and move to the next speaker or item of business. City Clerk, please call the first speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our first speaker tonight is Gardner Morelli.
Hello.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. This is Gardner Morelli. I live at 8454 West Mercer Way, and I am here representing the Mercer Beach Club once again regarding, and I'm not sure what I call it, STR 23-001 or now AB 6341 Shoreline Master Program Amendment Ordinance number 23C-15. This is a follow-up to your meeting on the 19th of September. And while I'm just can be in listening mode to listen to what everybody said at the last meeting, I want to say that I'm in full support of the changes that you made. I appreciate it. We don't want any houseboats. We don't want people living on the boats. We don't want to be sanctioning company or organizations selling of boats. We believe that all those things are not in line with the mandates of our clubs on what our primary purpose is. And so I'm here to say that if there are no other changes, then I am fully supportive of the approval that you hopefully plan on making tonight, and to support some of the discussions that occurred during the conversation last month. I have been able to speak to the Shore Club, and they are in support of the changes that you made at the meeting on the 19th. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to get in touch with Covenant Shores, but due to the fact that neither Shore Club nor Covenant Shores has a plan in changing their configurations, that any of the tweaks that you've made in the last month are irrelevant to their plans for their corresponding club. So once again, I want to thank the City Council, the Planning Commission, and staff for support in working through this to develop code that will help support the existing clubs on the island for years to come.
Thank you. Do we have any further public comment?
There are no further speakers tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, since there's no further appearances, the next item of business is approval of the consent agenda. The consent agenda contains AB 6347, September 22, 2023 payroll certification of claims for September 15 and 22, 2023, City Council meeting minutes of September 19, 2023, regular hybrid meeting, AB 6348 Arbor Day Proclamation number 317, AB 6349 Domestic Violence Action Month Proclamation number 318, AB 6345 2023-2024 Work Plan Update, AB 6353 Termination of the East Side Public Safety Communications Agency Interlocal Agreement. Council, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as written as presented?
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Jacobson, seconded by Councilmember Reynolds. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Weicker,
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobson,
Aye.
Mayor Neese,
Aye.
Councilmember Andral,
Aye.
Councilmember Weinberg,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum,
Aye.
and Councilmember Reynolds.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Motion passes. Our first item of regular business is AB 6341 Shoreline Master Program Amendment, second reading of ordinance number 23C-15, for which we welcome CPD Director Jeff Thomas. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce again Planner Molly McGuire, who's with us here this evening. I am going to be uncharacteristically brief in my opening comments tonight and just simply say that we are, excuse me, looking to wrap this one up tonight with completing the second reading and hopefully adoption of the ordinance. So with that, Molly, take us through a couple of slides and then I'll pop back on to talk about options.
All right, thanks, Jeff. So at the last meeting on September 19th, we had discussed 4 amendments to the Planning Commission recommendation, which were accepted and are included in the ordinance with the packet. And also during that meeting, City Council requested that staff look further into the term liveaboard vessels and provide some clarifying language. So the resulting amendment, which I'll discuss in the next slide, is also included in the ordinance with the packet. So staff referenced some of the guidelines and definitions in the WAC pertaining to boating facilities and coordinated with ecology to make sure that the proposed language remained consistent with those state standards. And we confirmed that the intent of the guidelines is not to prohibit liveaboard vessels, but to limit impacts in areas that do not have the facilities to support such a use. Things like utilities and pump out stations that are not required in the proposed standards for marinas. So because the council asked staff to provide clarifying language, this resulted in a 5th amendment to the Planning Commission recommendation, which reads, floating homes and living within vessels are prohibited in marinas. So the red text here was part of the original revisions from September 19th. And then the blue is also part of that recommendation to adopt here tonight, included in the ordinance. So after the September 19th first reading, Planning Commission Chair Murphy provided additional public comment to City Council regarding the eligibility requirements for marinas, where the marina would need to serve at least 50 people to satisfy the requirement for providing significant public access. And concerns were raised that this creates some ambiguity around the marina itself serving at least 50 people and what this would look like during enforcement of that requirement. So someone could interpret that the requirement be that the marina must have 50 slips, which is not the intent here. So the proposed amendment reads that the marina is part of a facility that serves at least 50 people. So the red text here is part of the original 4 revisions from the September 19th meeting, and the blue would be part of a proposed amendment to the ordinance that the council can recommend tonight.
Okay, great. Thank you, Molly. Mayor, so what we've got on the screen here, so there's essentially two motions in front of the council tonight for consideration. The first one is what Molly just covered on the last slide, which would, this is a clean version, what you see in motion number 1 here. It would be to move to amend MICC 1913-050 L2B to read, quote, the marina is part of the facility that serves at least 50 people, semicolon, or, and then unquote. And then motion number 2 would be to wrap things up. That would be to move to adopt ordinance 23C-15 as presented in your packet, but then as further amended, if the council elects to approve motion 1, or if council elects not to approve motion 1, then it would just be move to adopt ordinance number 23C-15, which again is in your packet with the 5 changes that Molly outlined in the first couple of slides. Just quickly, before I turn it back over to you, Mayor, next steps. Assuming that this ordinance is adopted this evening, it will be sent promptly to the Department of Ecology for final review to commence that final step of the process. And then upon receipt of final ecology approval, the city will go ahead then and publish the ordinance and it will become effective.
Very
With that,
good. Thank you.
Back over to you. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Reynolds, I see you have a question.
Yes, thanks very much for your work on this. I think we're ending up in a good spot, and when it's an appropriate time, I'm ready to make a motion. But the first, I have a question. Do we need a motion 1B in there to deal with the liveaboard vessel issue?
We so that is actually included in ordinance 23C15 in your packet already. So if you choose to adopt if you choose to move forward with motion number 2 and adopt the ordinance, that is in there. So that will be swept up with that.
So does motion number 2 then, if we do number 2, do we need number 1?
Number 1 is, so Molly, can you go back a slide, please? The blue language is not in the ordinance in your packet.
Okay. So we do need both, if 1 and 2, if we intend to have this blue language.
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay, Councilmember Jacobson. You're on mute, Jake.
So as things currently stand without approval, the current L2B would read, the marina is part of a facility that serves at least 50 people. Is that right?
The language as it currently stands in the ordinance that's in your packet reads the marina serves at least 50 people.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I would like to speak to that point at the appropriate moment.
Okay, go for it.
Well, I think that the amendment creates an ambiguity that is unnecessary. And that is that the one interpretation can be that this the marina is part of a facility that serves 50 people. I think the owned and operated by an organization or corporation serving at least 50 people makes it very clear that that aligns with the 3 organizations which would operate under this, namely the Beach Club, the Shore Club, and Covenant Shores. But I think that the proposed language is part of a facility that creates an ambiguity that is unnecessary. And I would say that the chairman of the Planning Commission agrees with me on that point and has asked me to raise this.
Okay, so maybe that was a statement not posed as a particular question. Does staff have a response to the other sections of the ordinance that put the safeguards on that really make this kind of arm wrestling for no real gain?
So what Councilmember Jacobson just referenced there, the strike through language there that's on the screen, that was the original language that was recommended, that was provided by the Planning Commission in their recommendation to City Council. So that's where we started on September 19th. That language, I would offer Molly or Allison to jump in if they wish to correct me here, but the staff's position was that language lived in a cohesive manner with other language in the code that seemed to make it pretty clear that this amendment was for 3, there would be 3 facilities that would qualify under it. So Ecology reviewed that language, excuse me, and concurred with the language that they were also fine with it. The change that occurred on the 19th of September to strike what you see there in red and insert the word serves. We were fine with that too, as was ecology. But then we received the public comment from the commission chair, public comment to council about this blue language here that came about this past week.
Okay, any further follow-up on that, Councilmember Jacobson?
Well, I'd move that the original language be restored and that the added language be deleted.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilmember Anderall. Okay, so City Clerk, do you have a motion that can be gleaned from that? Should we move forward?
I think that the motion that Councilmember Jacobson is trying to make would be to approve ordinance number 23C-15 as presented.
No.
No.
Oh,
So
that's not correct.
the motion, let me jump in here if I may. The motion that Councilmember Jacobson, I believe, is trying to make would be to amend the ordinance that's presented in the packet to specifically section 1913-050 L2B to say the marina is owned or operated by an organization or corporation serving at least 50 people.
That is correct.
Semicolon or,
Thank you, Mayor. Correct.
which really takes us back to the first reading language.
That is correct.
Okay,
Yes.
so moved and seconded, moving to discussion. I think it was Councilmember Reynolds.
Yeah, I just wanted to explain why I'd originally suggested the revision to this and why I think the revision to the revision in blue is even better. The language as it was originally presented and as Councilmember Jacobson is moving for it, I think would have the unintended consequence if as I read it, that Boeing could, because it serves hundreds of thousands of people, could operate a marina on the island that they only made available to their C-suite executives. It's not serving any material number of people on the island, but because it's an organization that serves a lot of people, they would be able to operate a marina. And not to pick on Boeing, but just an example of a large corporation. And I don't think that's what we want. At least it's not what I want. And I was attempting to clarify that.
Yes, and I think some of the staff discussion was around other sections of the ordinance that specify the 3 marinas. So, you know, if you were to read this in a vacuum, you may draw that conclusion, but the ordinance as a whole is specific to when the ordinance is adopted, that these community marinas must be in existence. And so I'll let staff elaborate on that if there's any other need, but there are other guardrails in the ordinance that prevent what you're suggesting.
So is the, Mr. Thomas, can you just clarify for me? I don't recall the wording around the context here, but are the 3 extant marinas actually called out by name as these are the ones that it applies to? Or in other ways restricted, like could Boeing buy the Gates property or Paul Allen property and set something up and they would not be allowed to do this?
Yeah, so there is language about an existing facility that's in there. Molly, can you help me out with that? Can you expound on any other sideboards?
Yeah, it doesn't specifically call out the 3 marinas, but it does limit new marinas or redeveloped marinas to be limited to locations where a marina exists at the adoption of this ordinance.
So the only risk we would have then as regards this language would be Boeing or Nordstrom or somebody could buy one of the existing marinas and close it down and say it's no longer open to the public. Is that correct?
Yes.
In theory.
Well, these marinas aren't necessarily open to the public, if I understand it. Maybe I misunderstand it, but they may or may not be. As far as my knowledge is that Covenant Shores Marina is not open to the general public. And I'm not sure about the Beach Club or the Shore Club, but
Open to, at least the latter 2 are open to the public who chooses to join the club.
right. But
Okay, any moving on to Councilmember Weicker.
Jeff, can we just be clear that both staff and Department of Ecology are kind of ambivalent between these two, given all the other guardrails in the rest of the ordinance?
Correct. So the original version that came to council on the 19th, which is the strike through red, both staff and ecology, there was consensus with the planning commission that that language would work. The change that occurred on the 19th, staff and ecology again on the same page. The blue language here, if the blue language moves forward, we all think it. Staff thinks it all achieves the same end game. Ecology has not reviewed the blue language, so I do want to just make sure that's in the record at this point.
Okay, City Clerk, you have your hand raised.
I verify the motion, please, Mr. Mayor. I have amend MICC 19.13.050 L2B to read the marina is owned or operated by an organization or corporation serving at least 50 people.
Semicolon or. Okay, is that your motion, Councilmember Jacobson? Seconded by Councilmember Anderall. Everybody's good with that? Okay, any further discussion? City Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Weinberg.
Nay.
Councilmember Jacobson.
Aye.
Councilmember Reynolds.
Nay.
Councilmember Weicker.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
Aye.
I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor, I couldn't make out if that was a nay or an aye.
Aye, yes.
Councilmember Andrell
Aye.
and Mayor Neese.
Aye.
Passes 4-3.
Okay. That takes us to the second motion. And so the second motion is council may have a motion to adopt ordinance number 23C-15 as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Reynolds, seconded by Councilmember Weinberg. Any discussion? City Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Councilmember Weicker.
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobson.
Aye.
Councilmember Andrell.
Aye.
Mayor Neese.
Aye.
Councilmember Reynolds
Aye.
and Councilmember Weinberg.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Motion passes. Our next item of regular business is AB 6351, closure of Mercer City Hall, resolution number 1650, for which we welcome City Manager Jesse Bond.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I have Robbie Cunningham Adams joining me this evening, and he will run the slide deck for tonight. There we are. Thank you, Robbie. All right. Tonight we are considering AB 6351, which is a resolution directing the permanent closure of City Hall. I have about 24 slides here to cover a handful of topics. So let's go to the next screen and I'll tell you what we'll cover tonight. First of all, purpose, some background slides, just a quick refresher. A reminder of the reoccupancy scenarios that we had considered, some additional information on City Hall conditions that Council, I believe you're aware of, but perhaps the community may not be. I have several slides on interim operating measures, and then we'll come back to resolution number 1650. Next slide, please. So again, as I've already stated, we're here tonight to review the circumstances around the City Hall closure and approve resolution number 1650, which would direct me to cease city operations at Mercer Island City Hall and permanently close the building. Next slide. Council, we came to you at the second meeting in July with a really comprehensive presentation on the City Hall closure. I'm not going to repeat that tonight. I did just select a handful of slides to remind us of that information that was shared. So let's go through those now. Thank you, Robbie. On April 17th, this is when the City Hall closure started. We discovered broken tiles and tile adhesive in the basement of the mechanical room of City Hall. They were identified by a staff member as probably containing asbestos, and that we had similar tiles throughout the building and had done previous abatement work in the building. We did same-day tests, which confirmed we had asbestos tiles and adhesive containing asbestos. And of course, the concern, as you can see in this picture, is that the tiles had become broken. It is likely this is not an area that was accessed regularly, that they had been in this condition for some time. We're not sure how long. The concern with this situation is that immediately adjacent to these tiles is an air handling unit for the HVAC system. So we made the decision on April 17th to shut down City Hall so that we could perform additional testing and evaluate the air handling unit and determine if any asbestos had entered that unit. Next slide. Over the next couple of days, we were supported by an asbestos abatement contractor who came through City Hall, assessed the mechanical room. We had confirmed what we did already know, and that the tiles throughout most of City Hall, which I believe is close to 30,000 square feet of tile, is of a vintage that includes asbestos, although most of the tiles were intact, so not an immediate concern, like the picture there on the screen, which shows if you lift up the carpet tiles, that is where those asbestos-containing tiles were located. We did a round of initial air quality testing throughout the building, and there were no positive tests for airborne asbestos. Next slide. Following that period, a lot of work was undertaken to understand what was happening at City Hall. We hired PBS Engineering and Environmental to develop and perform our testing protocols. We did a lot of testing, and again, I won't go through all of those details tonight, but that included air samples, settled dust, and bulk materials. Bulk materials is where we're actually looking at, the object, the whole tile, the whole filter. We did a thorough investigation of the HVAC system, because what we found in those first few days is that we did have asbestos fibers in that air handling unit adjacent to the floor tiles. So that started us on an investigation of the HVAC system. We also took time to evaluate other possible sources of asbestos. In May, we abated the materials in the boiler room. So that is a picture you see on the right. So the asbestos tiles and the adhesive were removed with the thought that we would be reopening City Hall. Although keep in mind, even though that is not the direction we're headed, we would have had to have abated these materials regardless. We also performed a good faith inspection in June. That is essentially going through the entirety of the building to identify additional asbestos that may be in the building, and we did find some. Next slide, please. This is a high-level overview of the testing and results. Again, we have more detail in the presentation from July. And I want to go back to that July presentation, because Councilmember Reynolds asked me a question in what was really an entirely bad news presentation. He said, "Is there any good news, Jesse? Is there any good news at all here?" And I failed to mention that there is good news, Council. In all of the testing from the beginning until just even the last round of air test samples that we took a couple of weeks ago, no asbestos fibers were identified in any air testing samples. So that is good news, that we know the asbestos is not moving. The bad news, though, and Council, you're already aware of this, is that asbestos was detected in 11 settled dust samples from 10 locations, including inside the HVAC system. This is as soon as we found that first sample, positive asbestos sample inside our HVAC system that came in above background levels, we had to shut off the City Hall HVAC system, and it has been inactive since mid-May. Our bulk testing identified asbestos in 2 HVAC system filters and 1 sample of flooring, and the flooring was not a surprise. We knew we had asbestos tiles. The good faith survey that I just described, where we were looking for other potential asbestos-containing materials, concluded that we have asbestos again in the undisturbed floor tiles throughout most of the building, in the window putty, and 31 fire doors in the building are asbestos containing. Next slide, please. So that brings us to where we are today. It is unlikely that the basement floor tiles, which started this whole situation, are the sole source of the asbestos found in the HVAC system. However, we have not been able to identify the source. It is possible that the asbestos contamination within the HVAC system occurred prior to when the city owned the building, or it may have also occurred during a renovation project in the late 80s and early 90s. And that is starting to feel like that is the most likely scenario of what happened. We are speculating that the renovation work we did on the police area of the building and a roof replacement may have included removal of materials that were asbestos containing, and they may have not been handled properly. That likely occurred adjacent to an air handling unit that is located on the roof of City Hall, causing the asbestos materials to be introduced into the HVAC system. I'm not able to tell you, Council, how much of the HVAC system is impacted by the asbestos. It's enough that we know the entire system has to be replaced. I'm speculating 60% or more. It's important to remember that we stopped testing. We had enough information at one point that we decided not to spend any more resources trying to get further into the system. A good portion of our HVAC system is not accessible. It's just the way it's built, and it's tucked behind ceilings structure, and we would have had to basically pull out the ceilings to get into it. So we just decided that we didn't need to do that. So with all of this information, we worked with our consultants in the late spring and early summer to evaluate scenarios to reoccupy the building. Next slide. So that takes us to, again, this is an abbreviated version of the presentation you received in July. And at that time, we had our mechanical engineers come and talk with you about why the City Hall HVAC system has to be replaced. It can't be repaired. And one of the reasons is that we have our system is quite old, and many of the ducts are lined with fiberglass insulation. And so the asbestos fibers have become trapped in that insulation. So there's no opportunity to just clean out the insides of the ducts. So that takes us to where we left off with you in July. Our architect team, Northwest Studios, prepared preliminary cost estimates for two scenarios for reoccupancy of City Hall. The first scenario was what would it take to reopen the entire building? And the second scenario was what would it take to just open to reoccupy the police department area of the city building? Next slide, please. So the first scenario, again, would require abatement of the floor tiles in the basement mechanical room. That was already done. And then full replacement of the HVAC system and basically all of the associated infrastructure. So if you think about this is the ceilings, the light fixtures, all of the cabling, and probably more than that. As I shared in July, my concern with a project like this and a building that was built in the 50s is these projects don't usually stop where just here. It's likely we would uncover additional issues and the scope would grow. The number we presented to you in July, that has not changed. It was $10 million to do this work, and the detailed slides I'm not going to go through tonight, with an estimated timeline of nearly 2 years to complete the work. What that number did not include is the full abatement costs. And so City Council, it's important to remember that although we're talking about removing the HVAC system in this scenario, we would need to do some additional work to fully understand the abatement requirements with this project. That number does not also does not include our soft costs, so things like design and engineering. So it's $10 million plus abatement, plus soft costs, plus other unknowns. When we were here when we were meeting with you in July, I did tell you that we could keep going to further refine that number, and we made the decision at that time not to spend additional resources on that work. So this is where we left off. Next slide, please. Council, you know that one of the most challenging teams to rehouse at this time is the police department. They have specialized needs and spaces and security protocols. So we did attempt to look at isolating the police department wing of City Hall to see if we could use it and come up with some contemporary or temporary HVAC system to serve that occupancy. The time horizon we were looking at is about 5 to 7 years, as that is what we anticipate. That is the time we anticipate we will need to come up with a permanent solution to replace City Hall. Although the cost estimate is lower, certainly by a margin than the full City Hall cost, it is still significant. The preliminary cost estimate to, again, do the same type of work, abate, remove the HVAC system, ceilings, and associated infrastructure is about $4 million with an estimated timeline of 12 to 18 months to complete that work. And similar to the previous scenario, we had not yet fully estimated the abatement costs or the soft costs. So, the true estimate is $4 million plus abatement, plus soft costs and other unknowns. Again, we didn't take that cost estimating any further after talking with you in July. Next slide. So this was not fully part of the presentation in July, and I wanted to take us back there. This is additional information on City Hall conditions. Certainly, the decision to close City Hall is a significant one, but there is more going on with this building than just the conditions, the asbestos situation. Next slide, please. Earlier in 2023, and this was part of our work program this biennium, the city began our long-range facility planning work, and that included performing facilities conditions assessments at a number of our buildings. So this work was underway. We had already started to look at the City Hall building, knowing that it was aging. We have systems that are failing. Just so that everyone is aware, the building, City Hall, was constructed in 1957, and it was last renovated. Last major renovation was in 1988, although over the last several decades, the city has performed some modifications and some minor capital work on the building during that time. This is not going to come as a surprise to those of you that occupied that building along with me. The current City Hall does not meet our current energy or building code requirements, and multiple building systems are failing. In fact, that HVAC system that we've been talking about, we have really been working hard to keep it going. It has been limping along. It's required a lot of maintenance, care and feeding, just to keep it going. So that was one system that was already at the end of its life. Something else that we haven't talked with you about, but we have been analyzing is, the structure itself. Almost all of the interior walls at City Hall have been identified as lacking lateral bracing, and unless they were reinforced, would be at risk of failure in the event of seismic activity. So we had concerns about the structural integrity of the building. And keep in mind, Council, in the event of an emergency, the community is going to be looking to us to respond. And with a building that has seismic concerns, that was certainly something we were going to have to look at. In fact, the walls are constructed, as you know, with concrete-filled CMU, which is concrete masonry units or cinder blocks, and they are at risk of collapse during a seismic event, which would potentially render the building inoperable. So I shared this slide with you, I guess, just to make the point that while the asbestos brought us here to this decision tonight, the building, the system, the structural integrity were all issues of concern, and they had been identified through the early phases of work of our facilities conditions assessment. So In total, there are numerous issues with this building. Next slide, please. In summary, we did not get here tonight. This was not an easy decision. This was not an easy recommendation, but based on everything we know, the age and the condition of City Hall, we have concluded that there is not a high return on investment without there's significant costs of abating and reoccupying the building. The investment in this building just does not make sense at the scale that we're considering. So my recommendation to you this evening is to permanently close City Hall and to turn our attention to identifying a long-term solution for replacement. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. Next slide, please. So before we get back to the resolution and the decision before you this evening, I wanted to take a moment to talk about the interim operating measures we have in place. And Council, I did not put this in your agenda, Bill, but we've fielded some questions since the packet was published. And I thought it would be good to just walk through this briefly. Next slide. You saw this in my city manager's report earlier. Just want to remind everyone the best and fastest way to access city services is through our customer service team, and you'll be seeing a lot of promotions with the number and the email address on it. I will also note that picture to the right is a screenshot of our webpage, and right across the top is a banner that's running that says City Hall Closure, Access City Services. It's currently blue. We might change it to yellow or something that stands out a little bit more, but we're really trying to make it clear on how best to access us, even though we do not have a storefront. Our operations are moving along almost as normal, just without a city hall. Next slide, please. We also went live today with the Let's Talk page. This is where community members can read more about the long-range facility planning work we are doing and the City Hall closure. It's all housed under one site. We have included the materials from the previous meeting in July on this site. So if anyone wants to go read in detail about the work that was done and the findings, it's all housed on this page. Next slide, please. So where are staff working right now? Certainly this has been a highly disruptive period of time for the city staff. Nearly all of our teams and work groups were impacted by the closure of City Hall. What's different about this than COVID is while COVID dispersed us all, we always had a home base to go back to, and we do not have a home base anymore. We also understand that there has been an impact on the community. Our top priority is ensuring continuity of public services and doing so in innovative and creative ways. And I truly believe we are doing that. About 80% of our city staff are working in person on Mercer Island each day. So just to put it into numbers, we probably have more staff working here than you actually realize. This includes police, fire, municipal court when they don't have court days, our Parks and Rec team, public work engineers, youth and family service, and all of our maintenance employees. So the remaining staff, which is about 20%, are working. I was trying to come up with a term with this because it's not exactly hybrid. It's like migratory. That 20%, we're kind of moving all around where space is available. So it's a combination of home offices. We're in shared and rotating office spaces. So at Luther Burbank admin building, we've doubled up, tripled up. In some cases, we even have 4 to an office. Now that we're through the busy summer season at the community center, we all are able to use this space a little bit more, where I'm joining you from tonight. So there's a lot of adaptivity, creativity. We're making it work right now. I think our biggest challenge is finding conference rooms where we can gather and hold team meetings. But that is starting to come together with the community center being more available. That takes me to what our priority is right now, which is relocating and stabilizing the municipal court team and the police department. Those are 2 of the teams that are most impacted by the closure and also most difficult to relocate. Also, the other priority right now is standing up a functional space for city council meetings. Next slide, please. So a quick overview of the municipal court. Since about June, we have been holding our court proceedings at the Kirkland Justice Center. So this is the City of Kirkland Justice Center. We are incredibly grateful to them for welcoming us in during some pretty unanticipated circumstances. That is where we hold our court days. When our staff are not in court, they have been working from a conference room at Fire Station 91. So as you can imagine, that is not an ideal situation. The Kirkland facility is not a short-term or medium-term solution for us. They just don't have enough space to house our staff and our files. So we have been looking for an alternative location over the last couple of months. We have looked at spaces here on Mercer Island, off island, and we have finally concluded, and my recommendation to you, City Council, which will be coming on October 17th, is to enter into a lease agreement with the City of Newcastle to use Newcastle Council chambers for court proceedings. And then they have available office space on the third floor of Newcastle City Hall, which is what we would use for our court staff offices. So this is moving forward. This partnership, this relationship makes a lot of sense because you'll recall that we also provide court services for Newcastle. I won't get into the reasons why this is better than other properties, but I will say this. This opportunity requires the least amount of improvements, either technology improvements or tenant improvements, because it's already a city hall. Most of the bones are already there. Next slide, please. With police, we're not quite as far along as we are with municipal court, but we're working on it. Staff are in the process of implementing a really temporary plan right now to bring modular facilities into the City Hall parking lot. Literally, a modular facility is a temporary building that is sitting on a trailer axle. We have brought one in already to address some of the short-term needs. We have another modular trailer facility coming in a few weeks. While we start to think out longer in the 4 to 5 year horizon, as I was just mentioning in that previous discussion. Our police team started at the community center, and then we had to move them when the summer started, and we relocated a lot of administrative functions to the Luther Burbank building, which is where they still are now. In the meantime, we are looking at the medium-term options to meet our facility needs, whether it's through modular buildings or possibly a lease space. Council, I don't have a date yet, but our staff teams are working on these scenarios, and I'll be coming to you to talk about the plan and a recommendation at a future City Council meeting, which will likely involve action by the Council because there will be an appropriation needed to address the needs. Next slide, please. I covered this briefly in my city manager report, so this is just a recap. The last meeting in September, you appropriated funds to upgrade the Slater room here at the community center so that we can host council meetings, other public meetings, and in the future board and commission meetings. That work is underway, and we are really trying to hit the November 7th, 2023 City Council meeting date as the first date we'll be back in person. So if that changes, if we have something slide for some reason, an equipment delay or something like that, I will let you know. But so far, things are going well and work is underway. Next slide. So what comes next? As I mentioned, I just want to remind you, my top priority is continuity of public services. We've had to prioritize municipal court and the police department and a space for city council meetings. Once we have that work done and some of the other things that are happening in the background, I certainly think we need to talk about the city hall, kind of a temporary storefront. We don't have a place that someone could walk into right now, and I acknowledge that. And then what to do with the other staff that don't have an office space right now. So that discussion is coming. We have so much on our plate right now that we had to do this work in priority order. So I will come back to you with some thoughts and suggestions on that once we get municipal court, police, and council chambers up and running again. And we just want to emphasize again, our customer service team is here to support the needs of the community. We think we're doing a pretty good job meeting those needs virtually and creatively in ways that we can. And we continue to thank everyone for their patience. And also thank the staff team for remaining nimble and patient during this really very difficult time. Next slide, please. In the background, I just want to remind you there's a lot of work going on preparing City Hall for permanent closure. I mentioned this again at the beginning of our meeting in my city manager report. We have furniture, equipment, other assets that we need to tend to, supplies we need to relocate, personal items that are still in people's offices and cubicles. And we're also, we have a whole team working on the paper records. All of our records, paper records going back to incorporation are in that building. So that work is underway. One example of, what does this mean is the HVAC system and winterizing the building. The HVAC system has not been active since mid-May. So as you can imagine, we, with winter coming sooner than perhaps we would have liked it to, we were very concerned about frozen pipes. So we have already taken action to drain all the plumbing systems and the pipes in the building to avoid a potential freeze. So those are the kinds of things that are happening right now at City Hall. Long-term planning work, where do we go next? Council, I have started that work. We actually started it at the beginning of this year. I haven't been in front of you in a public meeting to talk about it yet, but we were planning to start the long-range planning work. We've been doing our facilities conditions assessment, looking at several buildings. Certainly, we had already looked at City Hall. I anticipate we'll be in front of the community and in front of you discussing scenarios and options in 2024. I don't have dates yet, but given the circumstances, I wanted to assure you and the community that is coming very soon. Next slide. All right, so this brings us back to the purpose of the agenda bill and why we're here tonight, resolution number 1650, which relates to the permanent closure of Mercer Island City Hall. Next slide. Passage of this resolution tonight directs me to permanently close the building and continue to take the steps to secure the asset. This isn't demolishing the building. That is a future decision for the council. So why the resolution? Why do this now? It's not lost on me, or I'm sure any of you or the community, that this is a very significant decision. It will take us on a path to replacement, which is going to be likely very complex and also costly. But we also need to acknowledge that closing the building and then changing our minds later would also be very costly, a costly decision to reverse. As your city manager, I feel it's important to create a record where we formalize and memorialize this decision. I also need the assurance that although this is my recommendation, this is your decision, City Council, and your passage tonight puts us in lockstep, and I will continue working to essentially close or mothball that building. Next slide, please. And this is the last slide in the deck. It is the motion approving resolution 1650, directing the permanent closure of the Mercer Island City Hall building. And with that, thank you for bearing with me while we got through all of those slides. I will ask Robbie to stop screen sharing, and happy to answer any questions you have.
Very good. Council, any questions? Seeing any? Maybe Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
I am happy to make a motion with the now has misplaced
Sure, go ahead.
my notes.
If you want to make the motion is to approve resolution number 1650, directing the permanent closure of Mercer Island City Hall building.
I found it. Yes, that is the motion I would like to make.
Second.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum, seconded by Councilmember Jacobson. Do you want to speak to the motion at all?
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to it for a second. Obviously, as Jesse noted, this is not a decision that I think any of us would like to make. It's certainly one that we are not making lightly. There are real, consequences to this action. I think our hand has really been forced here, and I think for the long-term success of our city, this is the right move. It's certainly not easy. That building, I think, was very useful, even though it certainly had its flaws. I also just want to say quickly, this is obviously not something we had planned for, and I think flexibility that the staff has shown to adjust to this has been phenomenal, and I appreciate all the work, the thoughtful work that's gone into this process. But obviously, this is not long-term sustainable. I was hearing yesterday about some staff that found a table at Starbucks for a meeting, and that is probably not the best place for city business, although I trust their topic was not sensitive. But anyways, I was in favor of this motion, even though it is not something that I think any of us are happy to see tonight or any time, honestly.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor or Councilmember Weicker.
Yeah, I just want to follow off Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum and just say, Jesse, team, staff, like it's been a crazy several months. And I just want to thank you so much for all the hard work and the relocation and most importantly, just the team for keeping the work going and keeping the essential services going and all the summer programming and our mental health counselors. Like it's just amazing that you could all pivot and just keep it going without having the backbone of a city hall. So I'm heartbroken to have to do this, but eager to move forward because given all the work and research that you've done, we clearly have to make this statement. I appreciate you for bringing this agenda bill forward to memorialize the discussion, the background, and setting up whatever might be next.
Very good. Councilmember Jacobson.
Well, this makes the water problem we had about 4 months ago look like nothing at all. If there's any good news in this whole thing, I think it is the magnificent job our city manager has once again done in meeting a crisis, in looking at it with incredible bandwidth and intellectual maturity, for want of a better way to put it, that gives us what we need to do to go forward. We don't have the final answers, but we now have a framework and we understand these things, and the depth of her analysis and actions today are once again outstanding. And I think, while no one in the community likes the idea of additional costs, we can rest assured that that's being done with the utmost professionalism and research. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you. All right. With that, no further discussion. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Councilmember Weinberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Reynolds.
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobson. Councilmember Jacobson.
You're gonna have
You're
to come
mute.
off mute, Jake.
Oh, here we go. Aye.
Councilmember Weicker.
Aye.
Mayor Neese.
Aye.
And Councilmember Androl.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Motion passes. We now move to other business and planning schedule, for which we welcome back Jesse Bond.
Yes, still here. Thank you very much. Look ahead to October 17th. Speaking of water emergencies, I'm pleased to report that we'll have our consultants in front of you on October 17th, following up on our after action work related to the water emergency in April that happened the day after City Hall closed. That was a fun week for all of us. We also have quite a robust evening that night. We'll have the revenue forecast for 2024, the solid waste, King County solid waste rate restructure, the town center parking discussion, and your draft 2024 legislative priorities. So it's going to be a busy meeting. I'm hopeful that that will be our last virtual meeting. And then November 7th, we are really working hard to get you back in person. And I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All right. Moving to council member reports. Or actually, before that, do we have any council member absences upcoming? Nope. Okay. Council member reports. Councilmember Androl, anything to report?
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Jacobson.
Nothing to report.
All right. I have nothing to report. Councilmember Reynolds.
Just a couple quick things. One, I drove by Dean's Children's Park today, saw the equipment mobilized for the bike skills area. Very excited to see that over the next couple of months and looking forward to it opening. And then also just a caution for my fellow council members and the community more broadly. COVID's back. I picked it up myself for the first time about 2 weeks ago today. Feeling better now. Thank you. But I have an incredible number of friends and colleagues that unrelated to me have picked it up. So everybody be careful out there.
Very good. Good advice. Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
Yeah, a couple of things. The PIC is meeting next week, and we'll be talking about legislative priorities for the legislative session. Hard to believe that is already on us, but it's coming up. so I'll report back to the group once I hear more from other folks what their cities are looking at for the legislature. I just want to give a big thanks to the farmers market and all the board members and all the folks who put in a lot of work to that. I think it's definitely something that people, one of the reasons they love Mercer Island, but I know it takes a lot of work, and I'm pretty sure the last one is on Sunday.
Yeah.
So I will be there, rain or shine, but it's been a great summer.
Councilmember Weicker.
Two things. I'll just say, speaking of SCA, put October 25th on your calendars and come on down for the networking event. AWC will be in the house. And then speaking of AWC, the board did pass some legislative priorities based on the committee feedback. So it's posted on the washingtoncities.org/advocacy, and the 4 priorities going into the legislative session are to help recruit and retain police officers, to raise the arbitrary property tax cap from 1% to 3%, to continue investing in infrastructure, and to provide behavioral health resources for cities. So a key theme there is bringing more resources and funding to local jurisdictions.
Great. Councilmember Weinberg.
And just wanted to remind everyone to keep on your calendar the Thursday, October 26th, we're going to have a city reception for the teenage ambassadors coming from Tonolé-Bain, who are going to our sister city in France, who are going to have a reception at the Mercer Island Community Center at 5:30. Looking forward to see everyone there.
Thanks for that. The next hybrid meeting of the City Council is scheduled for Tuesday, October 17, 2023 at 5 p.m. The time is now 8:35 p.m. As a reminder to the council, please stay seated until the staff has terminated the broadcast. Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight.